Okay, sit yourself on your left. Just into a good cross-leg position. Just have a little wriggle about. Just make sure that you feel even. And then just hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest and draw your shoulders down away from your ears. Just spend a few moments to listen to the sound of the breath. Just fill in the lungs at the bottom, from the bottom to the top, and emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. So you fill your lungs like you're filling a jug with water. So it fills from the bottom until it reaches the top. And then you empty your lungs like you empty the jug. As the level of the water goes down from the top down towards the bottom. And then bring your hand into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together. Lengthen your armpits into your elbows. And then with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Just listening to the sound of your breath as it enters and as it exits. Long, slow, deep, deliberate in-breaths. Long, slow, deep, deliberate out-breaths. Just feeling the chest expanding with the in-breath and relaxing with the out-breath. Feeling the abdomen bulging with the in-breath, deflating with the out-breath. And then with an exhalation, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. And hold on to that feeling of abundance as you release your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and focus to softly come back. Hold on to your knees, lift up into the chest, elevating the spine upwards. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen from the left to the right. Just listening to the breath and using the exhalation to turn a little more deeply. And then come back to the center. Hold onto your knees. Lift up into the chest, driving the chest upwards. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left. Drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across. Just feel how you are just waking up the body. And then gently come back to the center. Just come off your lift and then come up into dog down. So have your hands as wide apart as your mat, spreading the fingers, spreading the palms, turning your toes under, and then with bent knees initially, just come up into dog down. Bending the knees, lifting the chest. So last week we were looking at this idea of leading forwards with the heart area, like in forward bends, drawing the heart forwards rather than the head. So continue to draw the heart area towards the arms, drawing the shoulder blades in towards the spine, and then straighten the legs, lifting the seat bones. Breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the breath. Activating the legs however reluctantly they may be feeling. Lifting the frontal thigh muscles up towards the crease of the groin. Pressing the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs. Just listening to the breath. Long, slow, deep, deliberate in breaths, deliberate out breaths. And then keep your hands where they are, and then come up into dog up. Keep the hands where they are, keep the feet where they are, and then lift up into dog up. Keeping the legs off the floor, keeping the kneecaps tight and pushing into the heels, and then lengthening and broadening the abdomen, the diaphragm region, the collarbone. And then come back up into dog down. And then one more time, dog up. Pushing into the heels, keeping the legs really straight, broadening the diaphragm, broadening the abdomen, the collarbone, drawing the crease of the elbows to face the front. Again, another sinus clearer, and then come back up into dog down. Okay, and then step your feet forwards, come up into a standing position, and then just have your feet as wide apart as your mat, turning your toes inwards. So that the outside edge of your feet line up with the edge of the mat, so that there's a distinct turning in of the toes. That will help you to have space in your hips. Spread your toes, lift up into your arms, extend the arms up towards the ceiling. Any bad backs, then come into half uttanasana using blocks under your hands, or bring your hand onto the back of a chair, tabletop. Otherwise, we're going to go into full uttanasana. So hook the thumb into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows, And then come forwards, hinging at the hips. Stay at halfway and lengthen your arms out if you've got a bad back, with your hands on the back of a chair. Otherwise, come all the way down, but coming all the way down from the heart area, extending the heart area away from the hips. Just lifting up into the chest, breathing evenly. Activating your legs firmly, lifting the kneecaps, lifting the thigh muscles, hitting the shins back so that your weight is in your heels. And then gently release your hands down to the floor. Just come into half uttanasana for a moment, extending the chin and the chest away. Use blocks under your hands or bring your hands onto your shins if you need to. Driving that heart area forwards. Hitting the legs back towards the wall behind you. And then come up into a standing position, bending your knees on the way up if you need to. And then come into Tadasana. Just breathe evenly and deeply listening to the sound of the breath. Just be in Tadasana for a moment. Have the inner edge of the feet together, big toes touching, your heels touching. Just lifting up into the chest. So we're going to Virabhadrasana 1. So bring your arms out nice and wide. Lifting up into your chest. Bend your elbows, bring your hands in toward your chest, and then step or jump the feet nice and wide. And then raise your arms up to the ceiling. Turn the left toes in really steeply and then rotate on the right foot. Pick the heel up of that back leg and turn the heel outwards so that the hips can come level. So in Virabhadrasana 1, the back leg needs to stay rod straight, so tighten the kneecap, really lift up into the chest. And then bend the front knee, find a right angle with that front leg. You might have to creep the foot forwards a little bit. Keep reaching from the hips into the armpits, into the palms, but keep pushing into the heel of the back leg, like in svanasana, dog up. So find that right angle, but keep pushing firmly into the heel of that back leg. So bend the knee a bit more, Ruth, if you can. Bend the knee a bit more, Andrew. That's it. Lift up into the chest, keeping the chest facing the front knee. That back leg really firm. Even if the heel lifts of that back leg. Okay, straighten the leg. Come back to the center. Just release your arms for a second. Just take a few deep in breaths. A few deep out breaths. So it's quite a strenuous pose, isn't it? Looks really easy, but relatively strenuous. So this time keep your hands on your hips. Turn the right toes in as steeply as you can. Rotate on the left foot. And again, pick up that back heel and then turn the heel outwards so that your feet are kind of in Tadasana again, almost. Bring your hands onto your hips. So it's this back leg. It needs to work firmly. You need to tighten the kneecap. Tadasana-wise this leg, turning the front of the thigh inwards, pushing the thigh really firmly into the bone, lift up into the chest, raise your arms, and then bend the front leg. Find a right angle with that front leg, but keep that back leg really firmly working. If you can keep the heel down, then all good, but you know, we're only human. Most of us probably need to lift that heel off the floor, but just keep tadasana-izing that back leg, push into the heel like you're in svanasana. Lift up into the chest, lift from the abdomen into the diaphragm, into the collarbone, leading up with the heart area. If you can look up, breathing evenly. And then straighten the leg. Just come back to the front. And then step or jump the feet back together. And then come back into Tadasana. So just feel how perhaps your heart rate is slightly increased. Maybe you need to take deeper breaths because it's a relatively strenuous pose. Just breathe evenly. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Stretch your arms out in front. Hook the fingers into the webbing of the hands. Turn the palms all the way out. And then raise your arms up. Baddangulyasana. Virabhadrasana. Lifting the heart area up towards the ceiling so that the chest opens, so that the chest rises up to the ceiling. Just keep looking forwards. Keeping the legs really firm, observing how the feet are in connection with the floor. And release. Swap the interlock of the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms. Lifting the heart area up towards the ceiling. Drawing the abdomen towards the spine. Just listening to the breath. And then release your arms, bring your feet hip width apart, but hook the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrap your thumbs around the elbows, and then hang down in uttanasana or half uttanasana if you're protecting your back. I mean, of course, we are all protecting our back. No one can be flippant about their back. But I mean, if you've got back injury or back pain and hanging down like this is going to aggravate it, then just come into half uttanasana, but with your hands on the back of a chair or on the wall. But nonetheless, still working the legs really firmly, lifting the shins out of the ankle socket, lifting the kneecaps up away from the shins, lifting the thigh muscles right up into the hip socket. Just breathing deeply, evenly, listening to the breath. Release your hands down to the floor. Come into half uttanasana for a moment. And then walk your hands towards the end of your mat and then come back up into dog down, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Just breathing evenly and deeply. We can do Dvaipada Adho Svanasana. So bring the feet together. Bring the feet so that they're doing Tadasana together. The big toes touching, maybe even the heels touching, or the heels might be slightly apart if you're Tadasanaizing the legs firmly enough. But really spread your toes. Keep your left toes on the floor and then raise up the right leg. Raise up the right leg. Try and bring the leg in line with the upper body. Try not to turn that right hip up to the ceiling. Tadasanaize that leg. Turn the front of the thigh from the little toe side to the big toe side. Listen to the breath. Release the leg. Just come back into Tadasana legs. Spread the toes of the right foot and then raise that left leg. Keeping the front of the thigh turning inwards, the back of the thigh turning outwards, so that the hip stays level, hips stay level. Pushing into the heel. Keep lifting from the heart area towards the arms, pushing into the heel. And then release the leg. Just bring the feet apart, just come back into dog down. Okay, come down onto your knees. Just sit back on your heels for a moment. And then just observe your energy. Observe how your energy feels elevated. Maybe the chest feels light, the arms feel light, the head feels a little lighter. The legs feel like they're in good contact with the floor. Just breathing evenly. And then hinging at the hips, again leading forwards with the heart area, coming into Adho Virasana, but coming forwards with the heart area, spreading the fingers, driving the heart area forwards, keeping the head lifted, keeping the arms straight, keeping the seat bones down on the heels if you can. And then bring the forehead down. Try and keep the chest rising. So sometimes it's useful to get a block for your head so that it doesn't come all the way down to the floor, and you can have it quite high up so that you can maintain that lift of the chest, that connection between the seat bones and the heels. Taking deep inhalations and deep exhalations, listening to the breath. Okay, bring your hands underneath your shoulders and then just sit yourself up. And then just come down onto your back and into supta baddhakonasana. So come down onto your back, the feet close to the seat bones, let the knees fall apart, and then just rest into the floor. Stretch your arms up, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way up, and then extend your arms along the floor. Just breathing evenly and deeply. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Just allowing the hips to open, but of course put blocks underneath your thighs if you have got stiff hips and they're uncomfortable. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Keeping the arms active. Raise the arms up to the ceiling, swap the interlock of the fingers right into the webbing of the hands again, and then turn the palms all the way out and then raise your arms over your head. Just breathing evenly, deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. And then release your arms, just rest your hands on your lower ribs. Just spend a moment or two just listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Resting your hands on your lower ribs, feeling the chest expanding upwards and outwards and the abdomen rising upwards and lowering. So feeling the physiological result of the breath. So we know how to make space for the breath. And then very gently just draw your knees together and then pull your knees in toward your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then gently rock yourself up into a seated position. Just be in cross legs for a moment and just observe your energy. Just observe how your energy feels a little elevated from how it felt at the beginning of the session. And then just come down onto your front for bhujangasana, even. So bhujangasana, sometimes known as the cobra, is a nice back bend, but you have to work the legs really, really firmly, because otherwise, if you don't work the legs, then it can become aggravating on your back. So just be on your elbows for the moment, so it's more like the kind of crocodile, and then see if you can pick up the thighs and then turn the thighs inwards and try and lengthen the thigh away from the hip. Do one leg at a time, so turn the toes under, activate that thigh, turn it inwards, and then so we're trying to kind of open the front crease of the hip. So just a couple of times, just pick up have the toes on the floor, but pick up the thigh, and then try and just kind of manipulate the front of the thigh to turn inwards, so that you really tadassanarize your legs just to start off with, and then point the toes away, have the toes touching, or if there's definite stiffness in your back, then you can have your feet slightly apart, but otherwise the feet are together. And then I want you to push the toes really firmly into the floor so that you can tighten the kneecaps, and then re-access those thighs, turn the fronts of the thighs inwards so that the backs of the thighs are consciously broadening outwards. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Keep the elbows into the sides of the hips. And then we're going to come up into the cobra, into bhujangasana, but coming up from the heart area. So keep the legs really firm, and then keep the pelvis down, and then lift up with the heart area. Keep the legs really firm. You don't necessarily need to straighten your arms. The most important thing here is that the pelvis stays down. So lift from the abdomen to the diaphragm, broadening the diaphragm, lifting up into the chest. If there's no problem with your neck, look up. Otherwise, look forwards. But keeping the pelvis down, keeping the legs active is really important. Okay, and then just gently come down. Rest your head on one side, rest your arms at the side of the floor. And then just release into the floor. Just let go, soften into the ground. Just breathing evenly and deeply. Just listening to the breath. Okay, come back up onto your elbows. We'll do that one more time. But again, we'll just activate the legs first. So pick up the leg, turn the front of the thigh inwards, and really activate the toes into the floor. Point the toes, press them into the floor. Keep the backs of the thighs broadening outwards. And then bring your hands underneath your shoulders, and then keeping the pelvis down. Lift up, drawing the heart area up towards the ceiling. Keeping the collarbone broad. Keeping the elbows into the sides of the body. Again, it's not important to straighten your arms. It's important to keep the pelvis down. So if your pelvis is lifting and your arms are straight, then bend your elbows so that the pelvis can come down. It's the grounding action. Okay, and then just gently bring yourself down. Rest your head on the other side of the face, and then just rest into the floor. So bhujangasana, cobra. So back bends require a fair amount of effort to do, but they repay you in energy. So just allow the body to rest into the floor for the moment. Okay, and then come back up onto your elbows, and then I'll show you what we can do. So we can do dhanurasana. Dhanurasana is another back bend. If you've got a bad back, then maybe just do bhujangasana again. So do the cobra again. I'll show you. So with dhanurasana, you stretch the legs really firmly right into the tiptoes, and then you bend up one leg, and then you reach around the little toe side of the foot, but not on the foot. You reach around the ankle, and that, reach not around around the top of the shin, the bottom of the shin. So where so you're not holding onto your toes, you're not holding onto your foot, you're holding onto the bottom of the shin. So you just lift the chest, drive the chest upwards, and then bring the other leg back, get hold of the shin, and then the action is to. A lot of people find it difficult to lift, and it's because they don't work their legs properly. So you press your legs, your shins towards the back of the room, so it really lifts and opens the chest. And then you're going to lift the chest, so lift the toes, and then you come onto the abdomen, and then you let go. So you keep your knees not together, but you keep them hip width apart. Try not to let your knees splay apart. If you can't reach, then you can always get a belt, throw the belt around each foot. So you need 2 belts, or just do bhujangasana. So just come up onto your elbows, lengthen into the toes. Again, tadasanalizing those legs, lifting up into the chest. So you might just want to stay here, just in this crocodile pose, just lifting up into the chest, extending into the toes. If you want to go further, then bend the knee, reach around the outside of the shin, and then bend the other leg, reach around the outside of the shin. And then the first action is to push your shins towards the back of the room so that you can lift your chest. And then reach the toes up to the ceiling so that you're balancing on your abdomen. So breathing evenly and deeply. See if you can push the shins towards the back of the room a bit more, Ruth, and then lift the toes up to the ceiling. Okay, and then just very gently release yourself down, and then again just rest your head on one side. Have your arms either sides of the body, and then just flop into the floor. One of the things that maybe you notice about back bending is that you relax really, really deeply after a back bend, so you get a really good relaxation. So dhanurasana, you get a good massaging of the abdominal region, and it's good for the flexibility of the spine. So I've done classes where someone stands behind you, gets hold of your feet or your shins, and then pull your shins towards the back of the room for you, which then really lifts the chest up to the ceiling. And then they help you so you got hold of the shins, and then you help the other person lift the feet up towards the ceiling. But the first action is to pull the shins towards the kind of back of the room, and then that alone will lift the chest. So we can do that just one more time. If you need to sit out of this one, then that's fine. You can just stay in the crocodile, or you can do bhujangasana, or you can just go into supta baddhakonasana. So go into supta baddhakonasana on your back, feet together, knees apart. So those are your alternatives. Otherwise, just find your crocodile. So lengthen into the toes, lengthen the heart area forwards, lifting up into the chest. And then bend in the knees. Doesn't really matter which one you do first, as long as you do both. Keeping the knees relatively close together. Push the shins towards the back of the room. And then lift the feet up towards the ceiling. So Andrew, push the shins towards the back of the room more. Lifting the heart area. So you're pulling your feet towards your buttocks. See if you can lengthen the, okay, it's quite strong, isn't it? Lengthen the shins away. Okay, everyone release, and then just rest down. Just rest your head on the other side, so what you did last time. And then just release into the floor. So you always relax really nicely after a back bend. Okay, and then just come back up onto your knees, and then just stretch forwards into Adho Mukha Virasana, just to soften the stretching of the back. Okay, and when you're ready, just sit yourself back up on your heels and then come into cross legs. Hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest, elevating the spine up towards the ceiling. Just take a deep inhalation, deep exhalations. Just feeling the energy of the body, that elevated sense of energetic flow. And then gently turn yourself around towards the right side. Digging the backhand firmly into the floor to elevate the spine up and really turn. So after back bends, you always do spinal twists, just to even out the extension of the spine, but also just to settle the energy, to clean out the spine. Spinal twists help to release toxins held within the spine. Come back to the center, lift up into your chest, driving the chest upwards, and then turn to the left. And then come back to the center. And then just lengthen yourself out along your mat. And then pull your feet in towards the seat bones. Just lift the seat bones up off the floor. Gather the shoulder blades together. Lift up from the heart area. And then bring the block into the sacrum area, tailbone region of the back. Hold on to the mat really firmly, turning the crease of the elbows up to face the ceiling so you come right up onto the tops of the shoulders. And then either keep the knees bent or stretch the legs out. If you stretch the legs out, keep them straight. Keep them in Tadasana, not necessarily with the feet together, because that's quite kind of tight on your back. Just extend into the heels, turn the fronts of the thighs inwards, lift the abdomen, lift the diaphragm, lift the heart area towards the head. So this is good for digestion. It's really good for just opening up the front of the hip, which is quite a difficult area to penetrate into. Other poses that are good for opening up the hip is Shirvasana, the headstand, but you kind of stretch one leg at a time behind you. That's really good for opening up the front of the hip. Supta, virasana is also really good for opening up the front of the hip. Dog up is good for opening the front of the hip. Okay, and then just bring your feet back to the block. Just lift yourself up, lift the seat bones up off the block, just move the block out of the way, adjust your shoulders, and then guide yourself down onto the floor, and then pull your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, top to bottom, just gently massaging out the spine. And then get yourself a blanket for your head. Just lay yourself right down the center of your mat, supporting your head and your neck, and then just allow yourself to release into the floor. Just unhooking the muscles of the arms and the legs. Just surrendering the physical body into the floor. Listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and exits. Letting go of the muscles of the arms and the legs. And then observing that feeling of lightness radiating out from the bones. Bringing energy into the muscles and the flesh and the skin. Use your in-breath and your out-breath to distribute that feeling of lightness evenly throughout the physical body. Distributing it down into the toes, into the fingers, and into the top of the head. Filling the brain with positive energy from the breath. And then when you're ready, just gently wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, just bringing yourself back into this pose of shavasana. And then bend your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then when you're ready, just gently roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position. Just a final cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Just drawing the breath in through your nose, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Just being conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice. Draw the breath into the abdomen. Be conscious of the clean energy that you have released through your practice this morning. Good positive energy from the extensions and the back bends and the twists and the inversions. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside, and then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then very gently release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you're just full of energy and you've given yourself a really good stretch. So thank you very much for joining me.